Mimi Cherry presents a series of fortunate events. Fortunate events. Fortunate events. A series of fortunate events.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the series of Fortunate Events podcast brought to you by who? Wait, who is she? It's me, Mimi Terry. And I'm joined today by host, comedian, podcaster, event producer, Brandon Collins.
Hey, everybody. That was so exciting. That was the best intro I've ever had.
You gotta like start it out with energy, because if not, then hi everybody, welcome back to NPR.
Yep.
Would you like my recipe for not sweaty balls? But the one credit that is the most important one, sir, you're married to a Puerto Rican.
I am. Yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican.
That's awesome. I went to Puerto Rico for the first time last November. Loved it. Like, she'd been trying to get me to go there for years. I don't know why I was so hesitant, but finally went and just loved the island. It was the first time I can remember on a vacation I put my phone away. Like, the place we were living, like right outside, had a private beach, so I was just here enjoying some gasolina and just
la gasolina.
had the best time. And I really hoping to go back soon. I know with everything with like COVID, like my health issues, it's not the easiest for me to travel, but
Yeah.
I can't wait till things get to a place where I can go back.
2025, everything will be amazing then. See, I was going to torture you and do like a Puerto Rican pop quiz, but then I was like, no, Mariana, be nice.
Oh, no, I'm still like learning the basics of Spanish and everything like that, like un poquito, no quiero dinero.
What? You never say that.
Well, I mean, at least I was very upfront with my wife. She wasn't expecting to like get rich when we married. So.
Well, let's talk about things that you actually know about. So going into the podcasting part of your credits, first of all, I'm a long time fan. I remember hearing you on Keith and the Girl. I remember listening to a good old comedy Outliers that I remember it kind of faded away. And then, preparing for this podcast, I was like, let me go pull that one up again. First of all, there's only 3 episodes up. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. Second of all, I got so curious. What happened? If it's like, maybe like, not touchable.
It's fine. I feel like one of those episodes that's up, because one, like hosting costs, like Mike Brown and I had done hundreds of episodes. So just hosting costs and because like I wanted to just transfer those funds over to like Medium Popcorn and stuff. Of course. But
divesting.
Yeah, we had talked about it because we ended up, ending the live show. We have like we have occasional pop-up show, but we ended that after like about 7 years of running a monthly show.
Yeah.
And we were doing like this weekly podcast, and it was very inside baseball and comedy. And at the time that we were kind of phasing out the live show, we were also going in different directions in regards to our comedy careers. Mm-hmm. Mike was really focusing more on writing and like, instead of comedy, I was focusing more on producing and podcasting, like with the Medium Popcorn, really divested a lot of my attention there. And so, it was just kind of like a natural, like, hey, let's just stop this for now. And we've occasionally touched base about like what new idea we would have, but both of our careers are in so many different places right now. Like, he's at the B killing it right now, and I'm doing the Medium Popcorn thing and officially becoming a film critic, which I'm still like kind of understanding what that is and embracing that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm never going to say never that we won't get back together to collaborate on another podcast or program, because people do like miss our chemistry. They miss our show. And so
I'll put my vote in. So when you say you're becoming an official film critic, do you get like a certificate? Do you get a stamp?
No, it's just about like, it's almost funny. It's like a comedian. Like, you're not an official comedian until you get certain kind of credits or get past certain clubs. And I guess like from conversations I've been having recently, like people are like, oh, you're a legit film critic. Whether that be like because of the opportunities I've gotten. I'm a part of the African American Film Critics Association.
Oh, okay.
That's allowed me if there's one positive thing about this whole pandemic is that I've been able to do these virtual roundtables with celebrities like Jamie Foxx and just recently Samuel L. Jackson. So I get to talk to my heroes.
Hold on, let me pick up my jaw really quick.
It's been a wild summer. The only thing that actually felt like summer was like having fun in those interviews. But then, like I got a credit for the Toronto International Film Festival as a critic.
Wow.
Waiting to hear back from American Film Institution about their festival, and you know what, Rotten Tomatoes critic and everything. So essentially, like on paper, I'm a authentic film critic. I just do
Look
a podcast.
at Brandon growing up.
So weird. I hate it. I hate growing up. When I was young, I was like, oh, I can't wait to be an adult. And now I'm like, oh, God, I just wish I could go back to being like 17.
Exactly. Well, thank you.
Now.
I know, right? Well, thank you for letting me know what happened with Comedy Outliers. I definitely would love to see some kind of like, even if it's just once in a while, you guys just chop it up like once a month. I think that would be fun to hear. So speaking of medium popcorn, it's one of the best podcast theme songs I've ever heard in my life. I would sing it, but I shouldn't sing it. So you guys should just go download the podcast.
I was actually just talking to my career coach yesterday. I gotta like put out a want ad for a cover band to do that song because it's just a matter of time. Like it's just we're one publication away from like Phil Collins hearing about this song and then like, giving us a cease and desist or like suing us.
No, it's Bill Bollins.
we do have a special theme song in the works for the Halloween episodes coming up soon. So nice. Very popular song, similar vein to Easy Lover, where like as soon as you hear the music, you recognize it. So
yes.
But yeah, we're incredibly happy with the response that the theme songs had. Have you ever heard our Patreon theme song?
No, I need to sign up for the Patreon.
Well, we have it on the teaser. We have some Patreon and it has the theme song.
Okay.
And just spoiler alert, it's over the Golden Girls theme, and we had a lot of fun with that one too.
Well, that's where you win all the gays, so good for you. So I was listening to the Puerto Ricans in Paris. Duh. As soon as I saw that, I was like, yes, please. Are you okay? Were you having a stroke?
I sometimes in these podcasts I get so jumbled up, especially when I'm talking to Justin. Sometimes I'll just like say crazy things and he'll be like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what my brain's doing right now." It's like when I do that podcast, it's the first time I feel fully free, and I get to talk about something I love, which is film.
Yeah,
and so that's why I don't mind being the butt of the joke. I don't mind being the wild card that just like kind of throws grenade in. Like especially like Justin sometimes likes to talk about some very profound things. And then I'll just like say something really weird, like a Homer Simpson line. He'll be like, "What just happened?"
You're the one that throws the pie into the middle of the room out of nowhere.
Yeah. I'm the one that screams fire in the crowded room.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that.
Oh, yes.
So has there anything changed, like in terms of podcasting, pre-COVID and now during, because we are still during, we are not even anywhere close to the post. So were there any big changes for you, or was it just kind of like business as usual and you just kind of transitioned into just adjusting your life in general outside of it?
I think there was an opportunity for me to change things pretty drastically. I was let go of my previous job before the one I have now, back in like April. And so I was kind of at a crossroads where it's like, okay, I could really band down the hatches and fully invest in comedy and producing everything. But then it was also the uncertainty of where the economy might be and where audiences might be. Like, are people going to be looking for entertainment when they're like dealing with so much crazy shit happening in the world? Yeah. And so I got really quickly offered another opportunity for a day job and kind of looked at it and I was like, oh, this kind of works. Like, I'll see what happens here. And, it's fully remote, so it allows me to have the flexibility to do the podcast and shuffle some things around. But the long term,
New York,
yeah.
So you've been like in the epicenter of it all.
Yeah, but it never got as crazy. Like I don't know where some of these podcasters are talking about when they're like, "I hear New York's in ruins and like there's crime in the streets." I'm like, in a story besides that one hiccup where there's a huge like block party on Steinway a few weeks ago. It's been pretty fine. I would say 85% of the people outside wear masks. Okay. And when I go into Manhattan, besides like, the homeless population increasing,
Yeah.
it still looks like New York. It still feels like Manhattan. It's just
But
quieter.
are you seeing an increase?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
Especially
that's,
like
I
the
mean,
parks and
that's an
like
impact.
subway stations and stuff. It is way more prominent than it was before, and
Yeah.
I imagine it'll only get worse as things continue to get more dire with the economy. Like you look at Wall Street and stuff like that. That's just very closely to imploding. So.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, everything else is the seams are busting.
Mhm.
Especially when it comes to housing. There's a giant wave coming. But anyways, let's go back to the Phillies. But I mean, well, to stay in this vein a little bit, just divert a little bit. The event producing, because that's another thing that you were
Yes.
doing, pre-COVID, and I'm sure that. I mean, I know that must have definitely changed during COVID. And you have now your Drunk Black History show, and you're doing
Yes.
that virtually.
Yeah, and that to be honest was something that I need to be really convinced on. I was like pulling so hard against like not hosting a Zoom show for Juneteenth,
Okay.
and my co-host was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because like I'm the producer of it, so I'm like thinking about all the work. I'm also thinking about like how it's going to translate online. I just
Of
wasn't
course.
convinced at the time, and then things happened with George Floyd, and there's like a lot of tension. And it was hard to find someone that had the voices of myself and my co-host Gordon Baker Bone that could kind of help bring some levity and like highlight Black excellence. And my wife is like, Brandon, I really think you need to do the show. I think you need to do the Juneteenth show. I know it sucks because it's going to be on Zoom, but I think you'll get a really good response, and I think people need it. And
Yeah.
so we did it, and it actually went really, really well. My co-host did get too drunk, so he kind of passed out halfway through the show, but it added to the comedy. Like
Of
people had
course.
a really good time, and it was a lot of fun. And we're going to do another one next month because I've always wanted to do like kind of a horror themed Drunk Black History. So we're going to talk about folklore and superstitions and like share some horror stories. But I also need to make sure we're not making people terrified like of all the terrible things that happen to our to Black people, especially in the
Yeah.
Jim Crow era. But like while still highlighting Black historical figures that had a huge impact on society, but with a little bit of a horror theme.
Wouldn't
'Cause it could have just been
Candyman be a
all
good one to
slavery.
touch?
So I'm thinking about there will be some Candyman mentions in this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
I'm in this
Not
show.
to not to spoil it. Sorry, guys.
No. But yeah, I think we'd be remiss to not mention like some Black horror film characters.
Yeah.
But if you ever listen to Media Popcorn, I mean, Candyman is the one character that makes my co-host and I just shit our pants. Like that first Candyman is bonkers. The second one was even crazier, but I guess we're gonna have to watch the third one this year. I didn't even think about that. And then of course the reboot / sequel is coming out.
Yes.
Now, have you watched Candyman?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, this isn't really spoiling because it is available on the internet if you read it. So Yayu, I'm always messing up the actor's name, but the gentleman who's in the new Candyman,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who's been in Watchmen, a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
So if you go like dig into his character is the grown-up version of the baby from the first one that Candyman kidnaps for a month. And I was like, that is such a twisted, weird way to bring it full circle, but
Oh
terrifies.
yeah.
We're gonna find out what happened to that baby for those 30 days.
Oh yeah, and listening to the director explain like their motives and their inspiration behind how they're choosing to tell this story, and the choice to push it because she wants it's about community.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, the story, and so she wants that sense of community. Yeah. Woo. Yeah, I'm getting chills. Like I love horror movies. That's why I was gonna try to put a game together around horror movies with you, but then we had a little bit of back and forth. I ended up changing the game completely, but I'm really excited for it. Well, speaking of games, the first one that I started to come up with, but then, well, did Kanye tweet it or not? That's how the idea started,
Okay.
right? And then I literally started going through his timeline. First of all, it's deleted before 2018. I guess that must have been when he like went away and came back. So there's nothing pre-2018. And then I started copying and pasting the tweets that were the ones that Ye twat it.
Mhm.
And then I just got so sad that I was like, I can't even make this funny.
I know, because it's a cry for help. And that's the thing that like really, I try not to react to it because clearly there's something going on. He's publicly said like he doesn't like to take his medication for bipolar disorder or whatever other
Yes.
things he has going on. It's just weird that you would have so many children and you're just doing this in such a public way and you're not thinking about how that's going to boomerang back on your kids. But he's very egocentric. He's always been like that since College Dropout. So it's kind of like you're asking him to change who he is, but he's always been that way.
It's almost like he's hyper self-aware, if that's like a thing. Because like there's self-awareness. I think he's so self-aware that that's all he's like consumed with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he also has like his own voices encouraging him. Like when he tweets like, I am like Jesus, I am like the new Moses. You're like, who was telling you that? Like, unless he has so many like dangerous yes men around him.
Which, I mean, you know, you get to a certain point, right? Unfortunately. And like he's also at a point that, you know, and I think even Kim has somewhat alluded to it. He's basically not enough of a threat to himself or anybody to actually be forced to get help.
Yep.
And when they do try to like maybe heavily encourage it, he runs away because he can do that because he can hop on a plane and run away. So, and such a good song too. Anyways.
I mean, I still listen to the old Kanye stuff.
Yes.
Like it just has such a huge impact on my life. Like I can't avoid it, but at the same time, it's like, I'm okay if you never release any more music. I just kind of like honestly want you to go away for a while. No one's going to buy your ugly rock dinosaur shoes. Like, I don't know who keeps encouraging them.
I love that tweet. I designed for the future and then Future wears it. And it's a picture of Future wearing the ugly ass shoe.
Mike Brown told me to listen to his interview with Nick Cannon, and it's literally listening to two batshit crazy people.
It's Batty Boos.
Like, hype each other up. And Kanye at one point says like something like, I'm from the future and I'm here now. So I'm like double future or some shit. And I'm just like, what is going on?
Oh my God. Yeah. Kanye, please, somebody help him out. Hopefully. So the one game that I did come up with you, because I try to like at least one of the games mold it to the guest. So this is Razzie or Random Oscar.
Oh, okay.
So I have a list of movies. Some of them won Razzies and some of them randomly won Oscars.
Yep.
So we'll start with Speed. Razzie or Random Oscar?
I'm going to go with Random Oscar. I feel like sound editing or something like that it could have won for.
Ding, 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 ding. Year of the Dragon.
I'm going to go with Razzie on that one.
Oh, good. Ding, ding, ding.
Okay.
RoboCop.
Ooh. I'm going to go with Random Oscar.
Oh my gosh, you're 3 for 3. The Postman.
Oh, Razzie. Kevin Costner, right? Yeah. That's
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. Oh, Razzies. And
Oscar.
Oh, I think it got both though, right?
Well, it's in the Oscar because it won an Oscar. You could have got it if you would have said Oscar first, but you said Razzie first, so I'm not counting it.
Trick question.
Duh. Hello.
Because I definitely know Ben Affleck and what's her name won like worst couple in the Razzies or something like that. Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, so I basically also, for the sake of como se dice, being fair, just movies. Like no actors, no nothing. So I literally went with like the movie. But then the random Oscars, that's where it's like sound editing or effects or whatever. You know what I mean? But I just went with like the movies.
Okay.
The Bonfire of the Vanities.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with Razzie.
Ding, 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 ding. You're doing really good. Purple Rain.
Ooh, Oscar.
Xanadu.
Ooh, Xanadu. That's what Olivia Newton-John, right? Or Xanadu. That's like the 80s movie, right? Oh, you're not gonna give me hints. Okay, I see what you're doing. I'm gonna go with Razzie.
Oh my God, you're so good. The Bodyguard.
Oscar.
Razzie.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think it didn't come up in my random Oscars one. It might have
Okay.
won for like the song, but yeah, I was like random movies that won Oscars.
I wonder if she won for I don't know if she won an Oscar. I know she won a Grammy, definitely.
Yeah, and if maybe the song, like I could see the song, but I don't think
Yeah.
anything else in that movie would win.
Yeah, Razzie. I haven't seen that movie. Like, I honestly haven't seen that movie in full. I just remember as a kid seeing it a little bit, like when my mom was watching at home, and thinking this is really, really violent.
It is.
Okay,
It's actually
okay.
it's not that bad of a. It's actually not that bad of a movie, but it's also still just like cheesy and cornbally and like yeah.
I gotta watch it.
Inner Space.
Inner Space.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go a random Oscar there.
Yeah, you're doing so good. Back to the Future.
Oh, random Oscar.
Very good. Swept Away.
Ooh, Razzie. That's what Madonna, right? Yeah.
Dick Tracy.
Ooh. I feel like it's another trick question because I feel like it got both.
Which
I'm gonna
one-
go with random
which one
Oscar.
Yes, good.
Makeup, but I also feel like it definitely won a lot of Razzies.
The Golden Compass. Amazing book.
I'm gonna go with random Oscar. I feel like the
Very
visual
good.
effects or something like that. Probably
You're doing so good. Waterworld.
Ooh, Razzies.
That was a gimme. Ex Machina.
Oh, Oscar. Yeah, it won for
Yeah,
like best. Did it win best screenplay or something? Like that? But that was a good movie though.
it is. But I think it depends on who you ask too. It's one of those movies that I think it like I think Keith Malley hates it. You know what I mean?
Well, Keith is just he hates everything. Like I've literally talked to him. We're like, I feel like I have like a pretty valid point, and he'll just stare at me and be like, "Nah." I'm like, well, that's all right.
You're like, I think so. I've got two left for
Okay.
you. Her.
Oscar
Mm-hmm.
won best screenplay.
Jupiter Ascending.
That is with Tom Hanks. I'm going to go with Razzie.
You only missed one, and it's because it was one of the trick ones.
That was that weird trick one. Yeah. Awesome.
Good job.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay. So anything else that you would want to chat about, talk about, make sure that people know about before we go into our speed round?
Just Drunk Black History on Saturday, October 10th. It's going to be hosted via Zoom. You can get tickets at my website at AmericanColins.com. Just go under gigs. It's going to be a lot of fun, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We already have some fantastic guests booked or some random appearances that will pop up throughout the show. And again, it's going to be like kind of a horror theme. So if you wear a costume, we will be giving out special prizes for best costume.
Ooh, okay, I'm there.
It'll be awesome.
All right. So, speed round, and I'll give you a little background. This show for a long time featured a lot of drag performers, still does, but it was a running theme. It was drag performers. And so the speed round was originally kind of put together with the idea of drag performers, but I like applying it to other kinds of creatives.
Okay.
So we'll mold it around the creativity that you do. So how long does it take you to prepare for a podcast?
Okay, so watching the movie, about 2 hours on average. And then I do a little bit of research on trivia, even though I do have an intern, but she's a teenager. So that's like her work is very inconsistent. So about a half hour for research. And
Damn,
then
just throwing the shade around, aren't you?
she knows I love her. So I would say about 3 hours per episode, like per movie and things we're going to review. Unless like it's like deserves a deep dive. If it's like something really famous, like a really popular movie where there's a lot of trivia for random reasons or something like that, or sometimes I listen to like a DVD commentary or things
Wow.
like that. Yeah.
You do a lot of prep.
I do. I try. I have to like manage it a little bit better because there's just so much happening over these past few weeks with like the film festival and stuff, and so I try to like be very deliberate and watching a movie, looking up trivia, and then like being prepared for the podcast.
Nice. Tip for a podcast fan.
Tip for a podcast fan.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Something that they should keep in mind. Like, when I use this with drag queens, it's like with tip for drag fans, like it's, I think it's a little bit different, but I think maybe like in the comedy shows or like a comedy fan. So like, for example, don't be handsy with the performer would be like, a tip for a drag fan. So like, for example, but I feel like for a podcast fan, like for me, maybe it's like, I think sometimes maybe if you have a podcast where like there's banter, right, with each other and you guys like roast each other, I think sometimes also like podcast fans think that like they can roast you on that same level. So like, you know what I mean? Like, so with that kind of in mind, like, do you have anything that for a podcast or comedy fan?
I would say like for our podcast specifically, like sometimes we aim to always have like guests that make sense for the show and that we'll have a, fun conversation with. And sometimes we miss. And so don't like hold it against us like long term. Just like understand like that was like a misstep, and we'll make sure we have better guests on before. We've had 2 guests that were a little controversial that people were really, really unhappy with, and so we've come on and be like, hey, didn't know about this part of like this person's career, or that they wouldn't watch the movie but yet have a vitriol expression towards the movie that we were covering. Talking about the Ghostbusters reboot. We had a guest on that hadn't seen the movie, just ripped the female
apart
remake, and we were like, wait, did you not see this movie? He's like, no. And I'm like, what are you doing here then? So that was a bit rough, but it was all a learning experience.
Bear with the bumps along the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Tip for a baby performer or a baby podcaster, somebody that's starting out.
Be consistent.
Okay.
Be consistent. If you want to like be a performer, like get on stage as much as possible, perform as much as possible. If you're going to be a podcaster, if you figure out what your podcast is, you record it, determine a release date, and stick to that, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. Because if you want to build up an audience, they have to know when and where to find you.
Yeah,
and they can only do that if you're consistent in your release schedule.
That's good. Yeah, that's something I'm working on with this reboot. And so I appreciate your time. You're helping me with the reboot. Favorite podcaster that's not part of your shows?
Favorite podcaster. I mean, I love Rod and Karen from Black Guy Who Tips. They're fantastic. JL Calvin, I'm a huge fan of him because he does the Trump impressions that like went viral. Actual impressions. It's not the Sarah Cooper lip sync thing.
Yeah.
But his Righteous Spirit podcast is a very honest conversation about what it's like to be like a struggling comedian that's been in the game for a long time. And I've always appreciated his candor. And then Chris Lambert, he has this podcast called The Mundane Festival where he interviews musicians, comedians, just various people that he finds interesting. And I call him like the Black Joe Rogan, but like definitely a little bit more like self-aware and willing to kind of push people a little bit more on stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I really enjoy his podcast.
Well, hopefully he can get a Spotify contract. Yeah, anyways. Okay, what is, so the question for like the drag version, best drag tip for the everyday woman. And they range. Like sometimes it's like, makeup related. Sometimes it's like confidence related. So what would you say as a performer, something that you've learned or something that maybe you work through that an everyday person could apply to their life?
Read the room. I think when you're a performer, a comedian, you really read kind of like the direction of like how people are feeling about certain type of material or a story. And I've been part of many conversations where people go along with its stories, and it's like, you should have ended 2 minutes ago, buddy. You had them eating the palm of your hand, but you went 2 minutes over, and now everyone's kind of like drifting off and just politely nodding, and they don't care anymore. And that always makes you feel bad because I'm like, you were killing it, and then you just kept going, and you didn't stop at the right moment.
Yeah.
Or like, not everything has to be a joke. I feel very elitist when I say this. I work with a lot of professional comedians, people that get paid handsomely to make people laugh. So when I work in my day job and people try to be funny, I'm like, you guys suck. This is not funny. So like now everything has to be a joke, because also those are the kind of jokes that typically, because they're not like refined or they don't come from someone who's like a master at the craft, they actually are. Those are usually the ones that are offensive.
Yes, or could get
borderline
transpired.
Yeah, but people are like, no, I'm part of a. We sometimes have an all hands company meeting, and people like talk the way they don't talk in meetings, like in like one-to-ones. They're like, "Yo, what up?" and everything. I'm like, why is everyone talking like Randy Jackson on this call? I'm like, I
Not
find that offensive.
Randy.
That's one of the few black people in this chat. I'm like, what's going on here?
Are you? Do you guys talk like this when I'm not in the Zoom?
It was very strange. But then I had a call with this person. They didn't talk like that. I'm like, so what's that all about? Like an all company meeting, you just talk like that? That's so strange. Like a weird persona to have.
Last one, best tip or gift from a fan. So like, drag queens get like sometimes fan art, or like obviously like, $100, handed to them while they're on stage. Is there anything that a fan has given you that stands out?
Oh, that's a good question. For Outliers, I got it was like my birthday, and I got like some toys, like some action figures and stuff like that from audience members, which I was like, what? You guys like me like that? And they're like, yeah, of course. I really appreciate that. And then of course the Patreon support that we get. Like, I mean, that's like a monthly thing. You're legit like paying myself, my partner, for like our time and our craft on a monthly basis. And I think that's like incredible, because it actually pays more than what I was doing before with like, Comedy Outliers or other things.
Wow.
And that's really cool that like, we have fans that like us that much.
So tell me a little bit more about the Patreon. What can people expect to find if they become patrons of your Patreon?
Yeah, so Patreon, you get a lot of things. You get archive episodes. You also get, depending on the tier, $5, $10 tier, you get on each one, you get about 100 plus hours of bonus reviews. So there's a lot of times we get tweeted like, "Oh, you should do this movie or that movie." Like, we already did it. It's just
go to the Patreon.
And then also you get early access to upcoming releases. So, for instance, we have a review of Cuties coming out Wednesday on iTunes and everything, and then we're going to be releasing on Patreon tomorrow. And the cool thing about the Cuties episode, so your eyes go like, "Oh no," is because it's the first time I got my sister-in-law, who's 18, on the podcast.
Oh,
and
okay.
she got to talk about social media and things like that in her generation.
Yeah.
And Justin and I found that really interesting and insightful, because Cuties talks about the dangers of social media technology, which is completely getting lost in all this controversy.
Yeah.
Whether or not the filmmaker stuck the landing, or like making sure everyone understood the takeaway of this movie, that's left to be debated. We debated a little bit on the podcast, but it was just great to have like a young person on the show kind of representing that and saying, hey, this is like how our generation uses it. This is what it does to our self-esteem. It's not our fault. It's just like the world we live in. And I think that I think it's going to be really insightful for people that maybe don't have access to that kind of perspective in their lives these days.
That's been kind of like, most of the people that I think are kind of, not histrionic. I keep hearing that some of the controversy is muddling what they were trying to actually say, but did they say it the best way that they could have? Not necessarily.
Yeah, we posited, and I actually had an opportunity to interview the director for AFCA, and she was very adamant on like, this is supposed to be about the dangers of this technology and how it's being used to over sexualize young women. Yeah. And I feel like there's something lost in translation, especially given like kind of like the botched marketing strategy Netflix put out, as well as the dubbing. We talked a little bit about the dubbing. It was very distracting. I don't know if you've seen Cuties, but
no, not yet.
Dubbed it in English versus just putting subtitles.
Yeah.
I would have preferred subtitles, because the dubbing actors and actresses that they had were very distracting, to be honest. And so I think there was a lot to be interpreted from the movie. And again, I don't know if the director unfortunately stuck the landing.
Yeah, it's just, sometimes you could be wanting to hunt for the shark, but maybe just a little too much chum in the water.
My whole thing is though, like, there's bigger things to worry about. I mean, literally, we lost Ruth last night, and everyone's freaking out and stuff like that. And I'm like, Yeah, I mean, people, we have all the warnings. I'm literally like, I was talking to my wife the other day. I'm like, I feel like the world is like the universe is trying to tell us, like, hey, you made this mistake a few years ago. You have an opportunity to course correct it, because if you don't, it's gonna be more of this stuff.
Yeah.
Whether or not it, it does flip and it's better, I have no idea. I'm really hoping we're not part of the generation that sees the end of the world, because I would like to keep doing my podcast and talking about movies and making people laugh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's crazy.
it definitely feels like the roller coaster is clacking up.
Mhm.
And there's two tracks that I could go down.
Yep.
And one loop-de-loops and is scary, right? Because it's going to loop-de-loop and it's going to be scary. And the other one has fires and sharks and Nazis.
Oh, geez. Yep.
Well, where can people find you on the social medias if they want to social media stalk you?
Yeah, so if you want social media, by the way, we have some Medea movies on our Patreon. Tyler Perry movies. We did Acrimony, which is one of the craziest movies we've ever seen in our lives. And it was also filmed in 9 days. So that's explains some of the insanity.
Which is that one? It sounds familiar.
That's what Taraji P. Henson, and
I
she's
think
like
I
this
saw
full-blown
it.
woman, and it's so batshit crazy. But you all can follow me at American Collins, AmericanCollins.com. But American Collins is my handle on Instagram, Twitter, not Facebook. I don't really do much on Facebook and stuff like that. But follow me on Twitter. That's where I do most of my promotion, like random thoughts and stuff like that. I'll either be promoting something, or I'll like share some random thoughts about life or patty mayonnaise. So
Have you guys ever done like a Tyler Perry just as an entity deep dive?
we haven't. I think we're gonna do Medea's Halloween. So that like maybe we'll see what the response is like to that, and see like if we do like a Medea month or something like that. We have done what was his last movie he did, Tyler Perry? The one with the fake wig. Oh, A Fall from Grace. We did that one.
Yeah,
I
I think
bad ripping it because I knew one of the actors in it. Like I went to college with him, and I was like, "Oh, this is the first movie I'm seeing him in, and it's so bad. It's so bad."
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear you guys talk about like the journey of like, when he was doing these things on stage, then he goes, because, it's interesting to see, like, for example, I was seeing, the headlines on Gossip or whatever, that it's like, oh, Tyler Perry's a billionaire, but that like he did it on the back of like tropes. And, so it's just kind of like, and I want to hear that conversation. I want to have that conversation, but like, I feel like it's not a conversation that like I can have with just somebody like me. Like I would have to have somebody like you in the room to like have it. So I think it'd be interesting for you guys to have it, is basically what I'm saying. Look at me trying to produce the show.
I feel like anyone can talk about that. I mean, as long as you do the research and you kind of understand like where he came from and
Yeah.
what he's been doing. Because a lot of people said that he gives, especially Black people, a lot of opportunities.
Exactly.
It's really hard for people to shine, and say what you will, he allows a lot of Black actors to shine. He has interesting contracts from what I've read, but people get to work, and he has that studio that's making a shitload of money because he's done COVID right. Like he's had people on lockdown, and he's just churning, like you said, he's just churning out material, and you can't get mad at the guy because he figured it out.
Yeah.
He doesn't technically have to dress up like Medea if he doesn't want to. He's at that point. I think that's what he was aiming for. Is like, I want to get to a point where I'm like producing, I'm directing, I'm writing, and I could do whatever the hell I want. Like he can literally just wake up today and say, I'm going to do like $100 million action movie. I have no script yet, but I'm going to do it. And like, he can. And I think that's an incredible place to be in, like given where he started.
Medea in space. Okay, no.
I mean, they're sending the cars, the Fast and Furious, to space, so why not?
What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely happening.
What? Did you just say Fast and the Furious is going to space?
People have been joking about it for a while, but then recently, like last month, like Ludacris and Michelle Rodriguez confirmed that they were going to space. It may not be this newest movie. I feel like it'll probably be like a post-credit scene where they hint at space. And then the last one's going to be in space because the next one's supposed to be the last one.
Are they partnering up with Tesla and strapping a car to like a...
That would be interesting if like they did get like a Tom Cruise or something like that. Like if it ended up being like a mixture, because Tom Cruise is doing that weird space movie as well. And so it'd be interesting to see if that ends up linking up. But I don't think so.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what movies continue to come out the rest of this year and next year, given COVID and whatnot. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
coming on this silly little show. And yeah, good luck with all of your endeavors.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We need cherry reasons.